What I wanted to do is just give a quick tip for people learning about handbrakes. And when you're learning 3 pedals plus a handbrake, sometimes it gets confusing for some people and a little overwhelming. But it shouldn't be, because many people have experience with the handbrake way before they start driving a car. And that is because the handbrake on a bicycle works exactly the same as the handbrake in your car. So here I have a brake lever. On the bike, I activate it by using my fingers to pull back, and I can pull back a little bit, slow the bike down a little bit, just drag the brakes, or I can pull really hard and totally stop the back wheel. With the car, I have the same lever, except I use my whole hand to pull up on the lever and pull and activate the rear brake. Okay, that's all I'm doing. And same thing, I can modulate it. I can pull up a little bit, or I can pull up a lot and totally lock up the rear brakes on the car. So on the car, the biggest difference with this lever is there's a locking button which allows the lever to lock in position. So it can lock in any position you want it to be used as a parking brake. All right? But other than that locking button, everything else works exactly the same as on your bike. Even the parts are the same. So you have your brake lever, same as in the car. In the car, you have a brake cable. You actually have 2 brake cables, one for each rear wheel. On the bike, you only have 1 rear wheel, so you have 1 brake cable. Right here, it goes all the way back to a brake caliper. This is your rear brake caliper on the bike. On the car, you'll have 2 rear brake calipers. And when I pull on the brake lever, you can see the rear brake caliper pinch down on the wheel. These are the little brake pads on the bike. They push against the rear wheel and will stop the rear wheel from turning. I can give a little bit of pressure on the lever and just slow the bike down gently, or I can give a lot of pressure and totally lock the rear wheels up. Okay? So it's exactly the same as on the car. Works exactly the same. There's some different configurations of rear brake on a car. There's some drum brakes, brake drums in discs, and there's rear brake calipers. It doesn't matter for this video. What matters is that there's a brake lever, a brake cable, and a rear brake. Okay? And now, the big difference in the car is that you have a brake pedal, and the brake pedal activates both the front and rear brakes at the same time, versus just the handbrake, which just activates the rear brake, like on your bike. Okay? So if I take these bicycle handlebars and I put the grip right by the handbrake lever, you can see how this is basically just a bike brake, oversized bike brake. So if you have experience with a bike brake, this is exactly how the car version works, okay? You can modulate it, you can bring it up halfway, you can release it. It's not an on and off switch, okay? The only difference between this and a bike brake is that this has a locking mechanism here where you can lock the brake in position and you can release it. Okay, but if you hold this down, you can modulate it and release it without it locking. So here you can see the wheel is set. So here the car is jacked up in the air. What I'm going to do is just spin the wheel. You can see it spins freely. And I'm going to spin it and pull the handbrake so you can see how the handbrake forces this to stop. So here's the rear suspension of a 2007 Civic. Here's the brake caliper. Instead of clamping onto the rear wheel, it clamps onto this brake rotor, which then will stop your wheel from turning. So here we have the hydraulic brake line. This goes to the brake caliper. When you press your foot brake, it pushes fluid through this brake line and forces the caliper closed onto the brake rotor. Here we have, just like on your bicycle, we have the brake cable for the handbrake. So this is coming from the handbrake and it comes under the car, comes around the suspension, and it activates on this lever here. When you pull the handbrake, it will pull on this lever, forcing the caliper closed. It's not as strong as your foot brake, but it's strong enough for parking and emergency situations.